Welcome to another top 5 with Kris 05, guys. Today I'm gonna give you the best performing decks before the nerfs in the new Deadmines. Spoiler alert, the old archetypes are still dominating. Anyway, I would really appreciate it if you drop a like and a subscribe to the channel. I have been working my ass off lately, creating all sorts of new videos, updated my thumbnail designs, and some other cool new things are on the way as well. So thank you in advance. Now, let's get into the top 5. So here's what the nerfs look like before we get into the decks, so we can understand what's happening before and after them. For Mage, Dawn Grasp is gonna start giving only +2 spell damage, which I do believe is still gonna be more than enough to wreck a lot of the opponents. But it is indeed a significant nerf, which is gonna reduce not only their damage output, but also their card draw with Cram Session, which was a really big offender after Dawn Grasp. Garrote is gonna start to shuffle only 2 bleeds, which is also not a small nerf, because 1 less bleed means you're gonna need a little bit more spell power before you start doing those shenanigans. And with Razormane for Druid, it goes down to only 2 health, which is still more than enough to wreck some of those opponents. But yeah, obviously this becomes a lot more pingable through taunts. But you're still gonna be able to do those nasty plays as soon as turn 5 with a Coin, a Loon, Razor and Greybow for instance. And the last change here is that Renew goes back down to 1, so great. Control Priest is probably gonna be back on the table, at least to some extent. The first deck on the list is gonna be the buff Face Hunter. Buff Face Hunter with Doggy Biscuit is really strong lately, and we are seeing old cool cards like Arcane Anomaly making its way into it, because you have Doggy Biscuit to buff it, Ramming Mount, and also Adorable Infestation. But let's not forget, the deck is flooded with all sorts of cheap spells. So health on this thing goes above 5 pretty fast as soon as turn 2. You also have Intrepid, which can go literally up to a 5/5 as soon as turn 2 with a Doggy Biscuit. And the Ramming Mount actually does a lot of work too, making your minions immune while attacking, so it basically gives you free trades. You obviously are also running Trampling Rhino, which abuses all of those buffs for extra smorg damage. And let's not forget you have Barrack Kotobane, which in this deck is drawing different spells, because you no longer only draw Quick Shot and Aim Shot through it, but also Ramming Mount and Doggy Biscuit. Everything else is pretty much standard, and what we cut here is Tracking, Mancrick, and the Crimson Weapon. But I do believe that the 1-mana weapon might be a good inclusion here, and you might even want to change it for Ringling Rifle, but the choice is yours. Here's what the matchups look like. Big Demon and Fell Demon Hunter are not gonna be too good for you. And same goes with Aggro Shadow Priest. Big Warrior might be too fast for you as well with its big stuff, and Managary Shaman, whatever the hell that is also not gonna be too good. And also Elemental Shaman is on the fence, but everything else seems pretty green to me. Aside from Aggro Druid, which is also a 50-50 most of the time. And you also might be on the lookout for Garrett Rogue, because if the opponent knows what he's doing, it's probably not gonna be too good for you. For the mulligan, definitely check out my detailed video about it, but you can see what are the stats real quick here as well. This is when you're going first, and this is when you're going second. Basically, the philosophy here is you want your cheap minions and you want to start buffing them. So yeah, it's not exactly rocket science. The deck feels really strong and the wins with it are pretty fast too, so I would definitely recommend you give it a go if you have most of it already, and if you enjoyed Face Hunter in the past as well. It's not too expensive and I don't believe it's getting nerfed too soon, so you have time to enjoy it. Other than that, for Hunter, the standard Face Hunter is also still working, with a Doggy Biscuit included, just like I suggested in my prediction best decks video. And also Quest Hunter is still doable. If you enjoy the Death Rattle life, it's not gonna be too good for you, so keep that in mind. Next up, let's move down to Quest Warrior. This is one of the best performing Quest Warriors out there right now in Standard, and is again basically the one I suggested. We're running all of the good cheap pirates, and we also have Lord Barrow for those good board wipes, either by you killing your own Barrow with a Shiver Timbers, or by using a big Rancor, which also gives you a ton of armor. We're also running the cool Blacksmithing Hammer, which always allows you to draw a weapon with your quest reward because you basically trade it back, and it also gives you the flexibility of trading it for something else when you don't exactly want to be equipping a weapon. If you do equip it though, you can be playing Cutting Class for 0 mana, which is pretty great. But let's not forget you can also be just playing it for 2 mana with your Sword Eater. A good tip here would be to remind you that Stormwind Freebooter gives attack to your hero and not to your weapon, and even though it looks like your weapon has 5 damage, it doesn't, so technically Cutting Class remains the same price, so do not get fooled by this. Other than that, everything is standard. For the matchups, like I said, Aggro Druid is not gonna be too great for you, Face Hunter is gonna be 50-50, Hand Buff and Libram Paladin are not gonna be too great as well, but you don't get to see those too often, and also Quest Hand Warlock is gonna be 52. Mages are gonna be great for you, same as Quest Shamans, Rogues are gonna be fine, and also Anaconda Druids are not gonna be too bad. You're also gonna have an edge over most other Quest Warriors too. For the mulligan, again, you can check out my guide about Quest Warrior from not too long ago from the card up there. Here's what it looks like when you're going first, and here's what it looks like when you're going second. Basically, you want your cheap pirates so you can finish the quest more often than not. And also, don't get baited by keeping cutting class as well. I feel Mr. Smite is too high on this chart right now, and I wouldn't really be keeping it even when I'm going second. Even though, yeah, it has huge impact once your quest gets completed. But I would rather first complete the quest and then start looking for Mr. Smite, honestly. This is another not too expensive deck, even though it does have free legendaries. If you're short on dust and you don't have Barrow, you can change him for something else. But he really does fit pretty well into this archetype in my book. Also, I'm not too sure if it's not getting nerfed soon, and I really believe it should have been, even in this batch, but I guess they're gonna give it a little more time to live. Other than that, for Warrior, even Rush Warrior is back on the table, so it seems, and also Big Warrior is doable. There's also some kind of a quest control-y archetype as well, but all in all, the best performing ones are the aggro ones. Next up, it still has to be Aggro Druid, because it's just still nuts, especially if you're not seeing too many mages. This is what the standard Aggro Druid list looks like right now, and it is, again, a list I proposed before the mini set even came out, so I'm pretty happy to be nailing all of these so far. The new cards we have are Druid of the Reef because it's obviously better than your typical 1-drops in the game right now, with the added flexibility of being aggressive and defensive, and we also have the new Moonlit Guidance, which can be pretty great for you to be drawing extra cards and resources, and it even allows you to be dropping cards like Razormane and even Oracle of Elune, without even caring if the opponent has a way to delete them, just because you are gonna be having an extra one. We still are running 2 Park Panthers because those are your great tools for getting back on the board if you've already lost it. And we have the Big Boy Greybow and Teacher's Pet for those crazy double up 1-mana 5-drops, with your Oracle of Elune and Razormane. I do believe that even after the nerf, this deck is gonna be remaining strong, because let's face it, reducing the health to this is not gonna remove the potential of it doing the crazy Elune plays. And your opponent is still gonna be in need of an actual ping to get through the taunts. So yeah, even though it's gonna be a lot more susceptible to all kinds of new removals, it's still gonna be decently strong. For the matchups, as you can see, Quest Mage is gonna be pretty bad for you, and Big Demon Hunter could be a 50-50. Same as Garrote Rogue and Quest Hand Warlock, but everything else is pretty good. For the mulligan guide, again, I advise you to check out my last guide for Aggro Druid from the card over there. Here's a quick glance of what it looks like when you're going first, and here's what it looks like when you're going second. Basically, Razormane is always gonna be a keep, you always wanna have a good 1-drop to start you off. Peasant is good when you're going first, and not so good when you're going second, especially with classes like Mage, which just pings it down. Oracle of Elune can be pretty good when you're going second, and so on and so forth. Just watch the guide. We already saw what the nerf is gonna be for this deck, so if you're okay with that, I think it's a safe craft. And I do believe it's gonna remain strong. But yeah, obviously a little less strong. As you can see, Aggro Druid is the dominating top archetype for Druid, but we also have Celestial Druid, which is actually doing somewhat good as well, especially in skilled hands, because this is a very difficult deck to master. But yeah, if you're up for the challenge, this can take you to High Legend. Other than that, even Clown Druid is back on the block, and some kind of a token Malagos Druid, so you will be having options here. On the number 4 spot, Quest Lifesteal Demon Hunter is still killing it. And this is getting kinda absurd because this is the 4th deck I actually proposed in my prediction video. And it's literally card for card the same thing, with a new added need for greed. The deck is very hard to master, it is also a very different way of playing Hearthstone, because you will have to be thinking for a lot of different things which you usually don't think about, including what card draw you need to be using first, and all sorts of other micro synergies. In order to be a master at this deck, you have to know how much punishment you can be taking before you actually start whipping out your removals. Because you do have a lot of removals, but they're not endless, and the way you use those is gonna be the difference between life and death. In some matchups you're also gonna be forced to use all of your removal tools, including the OTK pieces, but the game is still not gonna be lost for you, because you could go board-centric with that big 7/7, and also Ilginat is quite the chunky boy, sitting at 4/8. And he's actually dealing 8 damage per swing, so there's that. Matchup-wise, for some reason Quest Warrior is supposed to be hard for you, even though I know it's not that hard. And same goes with Anaconda Druid and Aggro Druid. I do believe Aggro Druid is a 50-50 matchup, but I'm not sure if Anaconda Druid is that big of a problem, since you have so much hand manipulation, since basically the game plan here is to make sure you complete the quest before they get to their Celestial, which sometimes is easier said than done, but then again it is definitely not impossible. And let's not forget you also have Glide, which could put a kink in their plan. Mulligan-wise, when you're going first and second for that matter, you always want to be keeping card draw. Your best card draw obviously would be Spectral Sight, but also Tusk Piercer and Sigil are amazingly amazing too. Double Jump is fine, and same goes for your tradable cards, because they're basically a one-mana draw card, which is more than fair. And in some matchups you can also be keeping Glide. Matchups like those tend to be rogues, warlocks, and other stuff that actually tries to be drawing a lot of cards. Whereas if you're playing against somebody who wants to be removing their cards, like an aggro deck, you probably do not want to be keeping the Glide. Here's what it looks like on the coin as well, but again, check out my guide, it's fresh. This is another not very expensive deck, but like I said, it's definitely a challenging one to master. So if you don't want to be thinking too much and you want easy wins, this is probably not gonna be for you, because it's quite the headbanger. Other than that, we have Fell Demon Hunter doing pretty well, and even Death Rattle Demon Hunter is not too bad either, Big Demon Hunter is just above 50%, and we have all sorts of other iterations for Demon Hunter, but they're obviously less than perfect. And for the last deck on the list, it's gonna be Secret Libram Paladin. Secret Libram Paladin is one of those decks that can be pretty good from Diamond to Legend, but kinda drops off after you reach Legend with it, because it's a little bit too straightforward. But still, it is definitely very strong from Diamond to Legend. This is the secret variant, so it does play very well into those quest decks. Especially if you manage to put a secret before they manage to put their quest, which forces them to start testing or literally risk the entire game on a Oh My Yogg. You also have Alliance Bannerman, which buffs your entire hand and draws you a card, which is very good for Libram Paladin. And we have Variant King of Storm, which draws you your Devout Pupil, your Eldor Truthseeker, Caro Rome, Samuro, or Murger. Everything else is basically good old Libram Paladin. And you can also try fitting in that new Macaw in it too, because it does feel pretty decent in it. The interesting thing here is you're actually not running a Libram of Justice, so it is something to think about if you will be missing it in your games. So I would be keeping an eye on that. For the matchups, Aggro Druid is gonna be not too good for you, but as you can see, everything else is above 50, so climbing should not be an issue. For the mulligan, I actually don't have a guide about this one yet. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do one. But here's what it looks like when you're going first. Eldor Attendant is obviously your best keep, and same goes for Sword of the Fallen. If you don't already have Sword of the Fallen, you could even consider keeping a secret or two, especially if you feel like you're against a quest deck. Alliance Bannerman is again a great keep, and you can also keep Libram of Wisdom if you already have a good minion to stick on the board too. Northwatch Commander is fine more often than not, and again, Hand of Adal, same philosophy like with Libram of Wisdom. Try not to keep both of those though, cause it's a little bit too much. Knight of the Anointment is usually a fine keep, especially if you already don't have a good Eldor Attendant, and Murger I do believe is acceptable too. When on the coin, it's pretty much the same, with Eldor, Knight and Alliance at the top. Samuro also becomes a lot more keepable, because he is your guarantee you're gonna be back on the board as soon as turn 3 or 4. Sword of the Fallen still pretty fine, and again, buffs if you already have good minions to keep. I would not be keeping Variant King, even though he has a lot of card draw, god knows if you're gonna reach turn 8 with a fat card like this. Again, Northwatch Commander is fine, and even Eldor Truthseeker if you're curving into it. I do believe Caro Rome is also pretty acceptable, because she is also a very good way for you to be getting back on the board. But anything else is probably gonna be a bait. This deck is quite expensive, so if you're missing too many of the cards, I guess you're probably better off passing on it. I don't foresee any nerfs for Libram Paladin anytime soon, so at least you got that going for you. For other good Paladin decks, Hand Buff Paladin is gonna be pretty good, with the new Sunwing Squawker like I said, which you could be using in the Libram list as well. Just Secret Paladin is also doing pretty fine, and it's basically those 3 archetypes all across at the bottom. For the classes we didn't mention today, for Mage, obviously Quest Mage is still pretty strong, and even after the nerfs I do believe it's gonna remain so. For Priest, Aggro Shadow Priest is at the top so far, but we also have a Big Priest out there, which is not doing too hot yet, and same goes for Corrupt and Quest Priest, but let's see, maybe after Renew things are gonna shake up for Priest finally. With Rogue, Garrote and Quest are at the top, and even after the nerfs, Garrote is still gonna be pretty doable, especially in tournaments. With Shaman, Evolve Shaman is actually at the top, what the hell? We also have Elemental Shaman, Aggro Elemental Shaman, and even Quest Shaman, which is doing surprisingly well in top 1000 Legend too. And also for Warlock, we still have Quest Hand Warlock doing great. Quest Zoo Warlock is also back on the table, and maybe I should be trying it at some point, but we'll see. And there are actually Zoo lists without the quest doing good as well, which might be a little bit more doable for me, but time will tell. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Let me know in the comments below which is your favorite deck so far. I will do another top 5 once the nerfs have settled as well, so you can be expecting the next top 5 on Saturday again. Don't forget you can also hire me for some coaching, and you can check out all of my other guides too. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.